Huey Cuffie, every Monday at 6:30 p.m. for Men Talk. We talk about how to live, how to love, and how to lead. So join with us as we talk about everything that men talk about on Men Talk. Mondays, 6:30 p.m. on Isaac 98.1 FM, The Promise.
You can now see the Men Talk team live on Facebook at Isaac the Promise and YouTube on FBN TV. Sponsored by Dr. Anaya Tony, the Feet Lady at Anaya Health and Wellness Center. Call 360-5166 or 478-7416.
Do you know that Trinidad and Tobago is number 1 in the world per capita for accessing porn sites? Do you know that there is a direct link between porn and domestic violence? These and other issues we will discuss as we continue our conversation on Men Talk with Jerome Alexander of Fight the New Drug. So join me, Noel Professor Richards, my co-host Huey Cuffie, George, and our guest Jerome Alexander on Men Talk, Monday, 23rd August at 6:30 p.m. We continue the Porn Talk on FBN TV, Isaac the Promise Facebook page, and Isaac 98.1 FM, The Promise. Well, it's 6:31 in Trinidad and Tobago. It's time for Men Talk on your favorite station, Isaac 98.1 FM. You can also get us on FBN TV, that's our YouTube channel, and our Facebook page, Isaac the Promise. If you are new to this segment, you're new to this station, we want to let you know that Men Talk is a time for men to talk. It's a time where men get together and we talk about all the things that men talk about. The things that you're going to talk about in the bar, the rum shop, you're in the liming with the boys, the friends, that kind of thing. Because we realize that men need a time and a space and a place for men to be together, for men to talk. Somehow when the ladies are around, we tend to not want to talk about the things that really matter to us. And so we have created this time and this space for men to be able to empty themselves, to share with each other, encourage each other. It's not a program just for men, it's a program for the entire family. However, because we want to encourage men to talk, we have called the program Men Talk, and one of the rules that we have is that only men are allowed to talk on the program. So it's an interactive program where somewhere down the line you get the opportunity to call in and share your thoughts, ask your questions, but we only allow that from men. Women, you can also be a part of the program by texting us. As a matter of fact, I think the phone line is down today, so everybody will be texting us today. And that number, take it down, 275-1981, 275-1981. That's a number. We will be accepting voice notes from you and text messages. No, I don't think we could do voice note either. I'm not sure if you could do voice note. No. So you're going to have to text into us. So sorry today. We won't be able to take any calls, but you could send us a text message to 275-1981 somewhere down the line. So I want to say good evening to my co-host, Huey Cuffie, who is already here. Huey, good evening and welcome.
Hi, good evening, Professor. How are you going, brother?
I going cold, freezing. I have on my jacket in studio, but my hands are cold. I have to get some gloves or something for my hand because they're freezing. But other than that, I'm good. I'm really good. Yes. How are you? How are you?
Yeah, cool. I mean, it is cool weather.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm good nevertheless. Yes.
Good to know. Any shout-outs to anyone?
Well, you can't go wrong shouting out your family. So let's thank God for my lovely wife Patrice, who's listening, as well as my daughter Joel, who's studying. She's here.
Oh, she's here?
No,
okay.
Yeah. She's been here for the past month.
Okay.
But she's going back the day after my birthday, so I'm just happy to have her. I was expecting a Christmas, but we got a unexpected but welcome surprise.
That's good. That's good. Good to know.
Also a special shout out to all those. I mean, this weather, some of us like it for coziness, but some of us haven't been in that experience. Myself, many years ago when I used to live in Sani Grande, when you have rain like this, you usually have different concerns, particularly flooding and all of that. So you're just praying for God's grace, and strength that He already make a way for those who might actually be having a difficult time, during this time of rain.
Yes, indeed. So thank you so much, Huey. I don't think the George is on. Is he in? George, are you there?
Oh, yes, I am. Oh. Good evening, Trinidad and Tobago. Good evening, Professor. Good evening, Brother Huey. I am here.
Good evening, George.
Present and accounted for.
Good to have you, George. Good to have you, George. And
good to be here.
And our guest, our returning guest this week, Mr. Jerome Alexander from the international organization Fight the New Drug. Jerome, good evening and welcome back to Ben Talk. Jerome, you're muted. You're muted, Jerome. So unmute yourself. That's the thing with
Yeah, can you hear me now clearly?
I can hear you now.
Yeah, awesome. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Thank you guys so much for having me back. Good afternoon to Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you guys for tuning in on a topic that we're about to discuss.
Well, listen, only the people who are on FBN TV and Facebook will understand the next statement that I'm going to make. Jerome, it seems as you're here, but you're not here. All right? I'm looking at your head. All right? So, Jerome didn't get that. You're not here. You don't have hair in your head, Jerome.
Unfortunately, I got it.
Yeah. Huey got it, but Jerome, you're kind of slow.
You can't, Professor, only 5 minutes since the program. I can't be assaulted.
All right. I just want him to lighten up a little bit, man. We're going to talk about a serious topic, so, we need to start a little lightheartedly this evening.
All right. Okay.
Jerome.
Man down, medic.
Oh, boy.
All right. Okay, fellas, I apologize. Let's move on with the program. So, Jerome, good evening and welcome back. It's good to have you back with us today.
Thank you guys so much.
When we left off last week, the lines were still going. We're still having some text messages and whatnot. Unfortunately, this week the phone lines have been given some problems, so we won't be able to have people calling in. But we are trusting that people would still be a part of the program. Get ready to text us, folks. Your questions, your comments, your concerns, agreements, disagreements, whatever it is. Get ready to text us. The number, write it down: 275-1981. So, Jerome, this week we want to start off with this interesting statistic, that you shared with me sometime this week, that Trinidad and Tobago is number one, for accessing porn sites, number one per capita for accessing porn sites. And, it kind of, I would like to think that things don't surprise me anymore, but that did. That surprised me. Tell us a little bit about that. Is that really so? Did you make that up?
I really wish I did. I really wish I did. But that is facts and data that comes from very credible source, which is Google Analytics, of course. And this has been the case for the last decade. When I first became aware of where we ranked in the world was back in 2016. There was an article that was printed in the Guardian newspaper. I believe the journalist was Joel Julian, and he had gathered the said statistics from Google Trends. And back then, at that time, we were number one in the world for porn per capita. Fast forward to 2021, the last recent update, the most recent update that I read was on the May 31st, 2021, that showed that we were still number one for most searches for porn per capita in the world. And we have never left the top 5 in the last decade. So it has been a reoccurring decimal, if you will, that has been happening. And we have not really touched on a situation like this.
Do you know if any research was done as to why Trinidad and Tobago would be ranking so high? I mean, number one is the highest, of course, but you said we never left the top 5. Was there any study? Has there any study been done as to why Trinidadians rank so high in this thing?
Right. No, that's one of the things that we are actually trying to work on, gathering data, statistical data, facts that we can bring forward that would show a trend and the reasons why. There isn't a body or a group of researchers that are coming together to do this work here locally. It's more like freelance, and it's something that we I've been speaking with a few researchers from the University of the West Indies to gather credible individuals who can help us create a questionnaire and then go out to the public to get feedback. But again, because it's such a taboo topic, it's something that not a lot of people are willing to even share their opinion on, even though they're being kept anonymous. So that also has been a hurdle that we have to try and overcome.
Okay, you have to excuse me. I'm behind the scenes. I'm getting a lot of signals, so I'm trying to read some hand signals while you're talking. Okay, so we rank high. In your opinion, in fact, let me ask you this question first. Why do people turn to porn? Why is it that people would want... in fact, before you answer that question, let me ask you this one before I forget it. Those statistics, I know you said May 31st. Do you think it has anything to do with the lockdown? With the fact that we are cooped up, so to speak, or we were cooped up, so to speak? Because I know it would have risen, but do you think the fact that we are, so high, is it because we are an outgoing society, and the fact that we are cooped up inside has pushed us, to that place where we want to access something to entertain us?
I mean, as you rightfully pointed out, COVID-19 and the whole lockdown has only made the situation worse. It was already an issue that was ever growing, but now with COVID-19 it has just gone out of control. Now, with so many stress factors, people being home, everything being online, it's easy to access. It's just the first go-to thing that most people would want to lean on.
Interesting. Okay, so let me come back to the question I was going to ask you then. What, in terms of why is it? Now, we could understand porn being, entertaining for a lot of people. It stimulates them and that sort of thing. But why are people drawn to pornography as opposed to other things? Why is it? And has any research be done in that? Because you said, I actually question concerning Trinidadian men being so high up. But in general, has there been any study as to why? What is the reason, or what are some of the reasons why people are so inclined?
Right. For Trinidad, there hasn't been any indications. But what I have observed for the last 5 years in my work in this field, and I have seen, is that I understand that we are all human beings, and though we have different likes and we differ in physical appearance, basically we all have a few things in common. And what I have seen from speaking with psychologists, mental health counselors, researchers and scientists who deal in this field, together with religious leaders, we see where the use of pornography, it's more than just surface. So most people would think that someone will go to porn because they're sexually aroused or they're bored. But what we have seen through research is that, and I have seen several factors and reasons why people lead to porn. One, there is not a proper sex education in place, and this stems from home. So most parents do not speak to their children about what is healthy sexuality. So because most of the times, like even when I was growing up, my parents never talked to me about that. And I have asked a lot of people my age, people that are younger than me and those that are older than me, and without a doubt, everyone said that their parents never spoke to them about it. There were a few odd ones that their parents gave them a book and told them to read, right? So there is no education there. And this was happening for centuries before. So now with the invention of the internet, where pornography is easily accessible, together with the fact that some people promote pornography by saying, if you look at it, you will know what to do. right? So people are going for it for that reason. So there's no education behind, what this thing really entails. This is why the research is coming out now that is proving that this is not what we think it is. Another reason is that psychologists and mental health counselors are pointing out that most people who have an addiction to pornography or unwanted sexual behaviors, it stems from childhood trauma. Things that would have happened in their past that was not dealt with. And because time waits for no one, you move on with life. And these instances, these situations that would have occurred in your past, they manifest themselves. Porn now introduces itself as sort of like a spotter in terms of like, there is a void that is missing. And in order to pacify the pain, in order to forget what is going on, pornography presents to you a fantasy world where you can forget all of your pain, all of your sorrows, all of the resistance that you're facing in life, all of the rejection that you're facing. You can come into this world and get anything that you want. Nothing is off limits. And so when you have a young boy who has been, castrated from his friends, bullied at school, not paid attention to at home, where does he go? Who does he speak to? In comes the internet with pornography, and these days the makers of pornographers are finding more and more creative ways to present what they're making to you. So you no longer have to go and look for it. This now becomes an enjoyable pastime because now whatever I want to see, it's available at the touch of a button. So that's one of the reasons, two of the reasons that I can identify why individuals are just involving themselves with pornography. And before they know it, they're so involved in it that to break free from it, it seems so insurmountable to overcome.
Yeah. So people I understand that people are addicted to pornography. It's an addiction because the organization Fight the New Drug. And what you're all saying that this is the new drug that's getting people hooked. So in terms now, how you deal with it if it's a drug now, because when you're hooked on a drug, you have to withdraw. There's a period of withdrawal. So how do you deal with that? Someone who is addicted to pornography, who looks at it every day, who somehow seems to think that they need it in their life, how do we attempt to deal with a person like that?
Right. Well, one of the things that we try to do in terms of educating individuals about the whole issue of pornography, we find that so many people use the word addiction loosely, when in many cases that I have encountered with young men, they have a compulsive habit to pornography. They're not at an addiction phase. So it's progression. So people personally start to look at porn as a habit, maybe once a week, once every other week. That then goes into a compulsive stage where they feel like they must look at it. Even though they don't want to, they would go seek it out. And then the addiction phase is where it's like water, it's like air. You need this thing every day. You will do whatever it takes to get it. So it's a progression phase. When an individual gets to the stage of addiction, this is where professional help needs to come in. Unfortunately, what we have seen is that most individuals, when they get to that stage, it is only when things go really wrong that they seek help. So really wrong can mean they being found with child pornography and arrested. They acting out on what they have seen in a violent way towards women. They being caught looking at pornography on their job and losing their job. All of which are things that have happened before they actually reach out for help. And I think one of the reasons that promulgates that type of reaching out for help when things get so bad is that we live in a society where we train and educate men that you do not talk about your feelings. Big boys don't cry. Warriors don't cry. And we are all humans. And if you look at a simple relationship ends, A woman will speak to her friend, she will go to a counselor, she will join a dance class, she will go hiking, she will find a way to vent and to release and heal properly. When we look at how a man deals with the end of a marriage or a relationship, we go drink about it. We either move on and find another person, or we find something to kind of assuage the pain that we're feeling and we pretend that everything is okay. But that pain, that emotion has to go somewhere. And we are seeing, as you guys are very well aware of the domestic violence that has been on the high rise against women, there has been an outcry from several conglomerates, companies who are, promoting the awareness of the abuse against women. Several cases where you have murder-suicide. Mostly is the man that is the perpetrator. So we don't deal with the emotions as men properly. And pornography is one of the easiest, cheapest, most affordable way that a person can seem to bring some sort of release to the pain that they're going through. So when we come to the addiction phase, this is where professional help needs to come in. But because most men are not willing to say, hey, I need help with this, it continues to perpetuate itself to the point where we lose lives.
6:52 is the time. You're listening to Men Talk on Isaac 90.1 FM, The Promise, FBN TV, and Isaac, The Promise, our Facebook page. We take a short break and come back. When we come back, we'll be hearing from our co-hosts, from George, as they come into this discussion.
Hey, David, what you know, boy? How you looking spritey so? Just the other day you complaining to me about back pain, chest pain, your foot swell up, circulation, all kind of thing. What you take for that, boy?
Jamal, boy, I went by the feet lady, and not just me, I carry the family too. Boy, the family I straight arthritis, kidney problem, diabetes, circulation, acid reflux. You call all of them just now. I had a pinched nerve too, and a cousin with lupus. And boy, the feet lady help you with all of that. And Naya Tony, boy, she's no joke. She even helping you if you had a stroke. Call she today, boy. Don't make joke.
Call Anaya Tony, the feet lady of reflexology, today at 478-7416.
Do you know that Trinidad and Tobago is #1 in the world per capita for accessing porn sites? Do you know that there is a direct link between porn and domestic violence? These and other issues we will discuss as we continue our conversation on Men Talk with Jerome Alexander of Fight the New Drug. So join me, Noel Professor Richards, my co-host Huey Cuffie, George, and our guest Jerome Alexander on Men Talk, Monday, 23rd August at 6:30 p.m. We continue the Porn Talk on FBN TV, Isaac The Promise Facebook page, and Isaac 98.1 FM, The Promise. Back on track with you. You're listening to Men Talk here on this station, 98.1 FM, The Promise. Jerome Alexander, our guest. We have Huey and we have George. I want to give the Huey and George an opportunity to jump in. Any questions, any comments that you have at this time, gentlemen? Maybe it's too late. Okay. I don't know if you're speaking, but you're all muted, so. I've got good news. Something I think you... Okay. All right. Maybe they're not hearing me. So, Jeremy, are you hearing me?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Okay. So maybe the others are not hearing me right now. So let's.
I'm hearing you now.
I'm hearing you loud and clear as well.
Okay. I was saying just now, I was asking if you guys have any questions or any comments. So far, now is the time to jump in. Let's hear from you. Either one of you.
Sure. In light, Jerome, of the topic of today's program in terms of the focus, you mentioned the whole aspect of the link between pornography and domestic violence. Could you just, maybe give some reasons why there is that link between, someone consuming porn and actually now being in a position where they could actually find themselves engaged in domestic violence? Because, that unfortunately is a prevalent situation in Trinidad and Tobago as well, domestic violence. So I'd like to get your thoughts on that.
Sure. Well, one of the things we have seen is that the increase of violence in pornography. There was a podcast that was done, and a producer for pornography said that, he doesn't think that violence against pornography has increased. We have 50 searches that was done in the United States across various universities that has proven the opposite. When we look at this was something that we touched on last conversation, where we looked at the fact that the pornography that our parents and our grandparents knew as pornography, the Playboy, the Penthouse, it's absolutely nothing like that today. And because pornography is a business, the makers of pornography need to find new and innovative ways to keep the target audience. And what they have found is that the thing that people are clicking on, the thing that they're looking for, it's more graphic, it's more violence. This is what people want to see. And so because they want to see more of this, they make and they provide more of this. So when individuals looking at pornography, in the moment, they are training themselves to act like this. We have several research that are showing that individuals that are looking at pornography, they tend to act out what they are seeing, because neurons in our heads, there's a saying that neurons that wire together, fire together. So when you're looking at something on a consistent basis, eventually it becomes part of who you are. And we can look at this parallel to laws of the universe. So whatever you sow, that is what you reap. So if you're consistently looking at pornography that is getting more and more violent, more and more aggressive, it is only a matter of time until you start to act out and behave in a similar manner. And then we have the results. You guys can see in the newspapers and the cry of women in Trinidad. It's all about women being taken advantage of. This doesn't just happen overnight. It's a progression, and I have seen that pornography has played a huge role in behind the scenes to getting us to where we are right now.
All right.
Indeed. George?
I just made one humble observation that I would like to share with you. You know, when you're thinking about addictions on a whole in the world, a box of cigarettes comes with a warning from the Surgeon General, right? Casinos are limited and restricted to people 18 years and over. When you are talking about drugs in terms of marijuana, cocaine, and these things, you know, back in the 80s, there was a huge publicized war on drugs. Even prescription medication comes with warnings and deterrents that stop people once these drugs are addictive. However, this particular addiction is one that I have observed has no limitations, no restrictions. There's no naysay that is publicized against this addictive, destructive form of, you know, manifestation of, you know, I don't want to say manifestation of the devil particularly, but you know, as we can see from the side effects of it, that is exactly what it is. You know, what is being done? This is my question. What is being done publicly, internationally, to identify this as something that is addictive? And what restrictors, what deterrents are being put in place to prevent people from getting to that stage where they find themselves losing their job before they address this?
What I would add to what you're saying, George, and I agree with everything you just said, 150%. One of the things that makes pornography a drug in a league all by itself is that, you know, compared to alcohol and cocaine and marijuana and weed, when you detox from this thing, it's just a physical chemical that you're keeping out of your body, which is easy to do. Not that easy if you're in it, but it's doable. But when you look at pornography deals with images, and these images are embedded in your subconscious mind. There is no known way to the human man right now of how we can erase a thought from our head. So these images, they stay with you for the rest of your life. And when you have a combination like that and you're trying to break free from it, guys, it is only the grace of God that can do that. I have not come across anything that science has put forward to help overcome this thing successfully, but the grace of God. And in addition to that, in what you're sharing here, I think that even if you look at the statistics, I just want to stray for a little bit. When we look at the statistics of pornography, one of the things I hear that promulgates the use of pornography is that what people do in their own pastime is their business. And I think that is something that we need to change, because what we are seeing now is that what people are doing in their pastime, it's affecting our society. We have seen with COVID-19, there were individuals who were irresponsible with their own decisions. And because of that, it led to a spread in the virus, because a couple individuals decide to do their own thing. The same way where individuals behind closed doors decide to engage in this type of activity, now they act out. We as a country are now number one in the world for the most porn view. This doesn't mean, it looks as though every Trinidadian is looking at porn, but we all know that that is not the case. But because of a few individuals that are doing this behind closed doors, we now have an international image as a hypersexualized country. So we can no longer pretend as though what people are doing behind doors is safe and fine. Now, we cannot force people to not look at this, or are we trying to ban them? But what we want to do, just as George pointed out, and we pack up every cigarette, there is the Surgeon General warning. There is no warning we have to be about pornography. We are encouraging people to do it. We are telling married couples that want to spice up their bedroom that you should look at this type of pornography. And that is making the situation way out of control. In the secular world, the church has been described as a toothless bulldog when it comes to dealing with sexual issues, specifically with pornography, because we have buried our head in the sand for so long that now the situation seems to be out of control. And to try and control it right now, it takes a lot of work that we now have to implement. So internationally, what we have been doing in the United States, several states in the United States have declared pornography a public health crisis. They have implemented certain measures with regards to pornographic or explicit material. So I know in the United States, for example, Playboy magazines, anything that is X-rated must be at the back of the grocery or the supermarket, and it has to be covered down. We have in Trinidad the Punch newspapers, and we all know what the Punch is famous for. And I remember there was a time I walked into a supermarket. There's the list of newspapers that is there, and the Punch papers was on top of this voluptuous, beautiful woman on the page. And there is a 6-year-old boy looking at that newspapers with his mother on the cashier line. What is happening there?
Yeah.
And this is where we need to, speak up. And like I said, we are not here to ban pornography or shame anyone, but we want people to be aware of what you're exposing, not just yourself to, but the children that are coming up.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Just give me 1 second, please. Sorry about that. 3 minutes after 7 o'clock, you're listening to Men Talk on Isaac 98.1 FM. The Promise. We have Jerome Alexander of the organization Fight the New Drug. Huey Cuffie is here, my co-host. We have George and myself, Noel, Professor Richards. We're talking about pornography. We continue our discussion from last week. Our phone lines are down, so please, if you have a question or comment, please send a text message to 275-1981. 275-1981. A text message, not even a voice note, but send a text message to 275-1981. You can do it at any time now. Huey?
Yeah, I was just asking Jerome, based on the fact that you mentioned that a number of states in the U.S. have actually declared pornography a public health crisis, and I'm familiar with that from a few years ago. I think even recently we had one or two doing that. What were the steps that they took to do that, and in terms of here, how can or have you all been lobbying for that in terms of at least raising awareness for that, in terms of it being a public health crisis, and what are the implications of doing that?
Right. Well, I know in the US, there was a group of individuals that came together, different states, of course, and lobbied for it. So they would have spoken to the mayor of said state, and they would have provided evidence and facts that points to the harmful effects of pornography that would have led to several, situations that were really negative for that state. And by consistently pursuing this and lobbying and marching for it, they declared it a public health crisis. In Trinidad, though, because of different laws and the different measures, things that we have in place, it's different. I mean, it's a complete different culture. And that's the thing about pornography. It's so ubiquitous, it's everywhere, yet every country is different. So the rules and the regulations are different. So in going about it, there in Trinidad right now, there is no awareness or no movement to bring to the people the effects of pornography. Outside of myself in what I'm doing, everyone has taken a hands-off approach to this issue, while it continues to be a presence in not just in homes and in society, but in schools as well. So we now have to look at the laws and see how we can actually, make this awareness there for people to be conscious of it and make a right decision without having the feeling of, being condemned or looked at poorly. Most people do come forward because they are afraid of being judged. But we're not here to judge anyone. We're here to really help you to make an informed decision. Gather the facts. This is what you are risking, and make a decision from that, whether or not this is what you want to partake in.
Yeah.
Indeed. Folks, just want to let you know, you can send in your text messages to 275-1981. 275-1981. Send us a text message, a question or comment based on the topic that we're discussing today. It's the topic of pornography. So if you have a question or comment, please feel free. 275-1981. As we continue, go ahead.
Yes.
One thing I'll just add to throw in there for us to discuss, right? A lot of people have the misconception that when you look at pornography, you can delete your browser and you can clear your cache from what you're looking at. So, you're not being caught. Or you can look at it on Google Chrome in incognito mode, right? These different creative ways that people are coming about. But the thing is that every website you go on, there are cookies that track the visits to their site. And every year, one of the top porn sites, they produce the most viewed genre of pornography. And one of the reasons why they do that is so that they can make newer content of that same thing. So in Google Analytics, what we have seen is the specific areas in Trinidad with the highest viewership of pornography, together with the most searched type of porn. So we have seen in Trinidad, Princeton coming as number 1 for the area that has the most porn viewed. Tunapuna Piaco. Then you have Cuba, Tabaquita, and Talpara, that's central area, classed as 1 kidney. Third, San Juan and Labantil area.
Wait, listen, hold up. I want you to go slowly. Those are very interesting statistics. I want you to start over, please, and go slowly, because people need to know. And I'm glad you're saying that, because I was going to ask you, how do they know that we are number 1? Because if someone can delete their history and that sort of thing, how is it that they're able to track you? So I'm glad you brought that up. But please go slowly, and let's go over those stats again.
Okay, so for the most porn view, when they broke it down to the areas that has the most porn viewed, you have Princeton being number 1. Tunapuna Piaco area is number 2. Cuba, Tabaquita, and Talpara, that's classed as 1 central area. That came in as number 3. San Juan, Labantil, 4, and Port of Spain as 5. I could go on to the next 5 because I have the top 10.
Yeah, let's hear the top 10. No, let's hear the top 10. I want to hear them. I'm sorry, but I want to hear
the top 10 what?
The top 10 come down.
This is in order. This is in order of the amount of individuals in those areas that are looking at porn. So San Fernando came in after Port of Spain. Superior which is surprisingly because, I think it's a good thing that Separia is sort of in the 8th position, because for the last 5 years running, they have been number 1. Ooh. Right? So Separia is down to number 8.
People moved.
Martin,
they moved.
And bonus runs off the top 10.
Nice. Oh, that is so very interesting, and it gives us a, I don't know, for me, something else to delve into as to why would Princess Town to be number 1? What is it that is happening in Princess Town that would cause people to, and I suppose those are the kind of things that we would want to look into. But
well, the thing about it is that, I mean, at the end of the day, we are different parts of the plane, but we only still on the same plane. So the reality about it as a country, it's a challenge that we have. I think we also need to be mindful of, I think, and Jerome alluded to it last week, that it's a manifestation of other things. So I think we in a sense, I mean, how do we promote ourselves as a country? What are what are we known for? Those connections, the whole aspect of how family life, the breakdown of family life, the whole aspect of family of origin, identity, a number of those things keep going. So it's really a manifestation, and sadly, pornography is one, but we have manifestations of I would say the source problems to it that give expression to it in other areas. So I do think that it is something that we have to be mindful of. I mean, George was kind of, talking about the whole aspect of it's a spiritual context, but we have to be mindful of that as well. There is that dynamic. And I think what we glorify, shame definitely is a factor there. So to Jerome's point, nobody wants to how do we deal with it? People are afraid to share because they're afraid they'll be shamed. And secrecy becomes a strength of that. So, it's sadly, I think even how we're talking about it, it becomes humorous, and we'll leave it at that. And so I feel that we just have to be mindful of how impactful it can be. I would say one thing, and I was reflecting on what Jerome said last week, and I know you saw the domestic violence, so my ears kind of perked up on that. But I do think that one of the ways it has been challenging is, the unrealistic expectations of how your partner is supposed to relate to you in an intimate way, and marriages have really been impacted negatively by that, where basically we basically persons expect their spouses to actually know, act out, or do what they would see, and so that becomes a problem in the marriage. And even as you mentioned, couples actually see it now as a form of like a tool. So it really is these subtle things. I think what we have to really start looking at is, one, how we would come to this place, why it is persons find it as a useful outlet against the bigger backdrop of how we as a country, because also I Netflix, if you look at Netflix as well, Netflix has a rating, as the top shows, and consistently the top shows tend to be the ones that are very sexually graphic, right? And that's public information. So it's something that we you mentioned you talk about sex cells. It's something there, but to your point, I think it, as you were saying, we have to go deeper. Even as one of the books that you recommended, I look at one of the authors. He has a book called Going Deeper. So that dynamic is something that we have to be mindful as a country. Why it is, we are always number one for this period of time, and are there connections to other things that we promote and celebrate, and why are we shocked then? If we celebrate this, the whole aspect of the exposure of the flesh and whatnot, why are we shocked?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Interestingly enough, as well, if I might just quickly add, in addition to those areas and the numbers that are people in those areas that are looking at pornography, they also have the genre of pornography that people are looking at. And it's scary as well, because when you look at one of the top search type of pornography in Trinidad and Tobago, being gay pornography, incest, and bestiality, you see that one of the mental health counselor, Jay Stringer, showed that in his research, the type of pornography that an individual looks at, it reveals the area in their life that they are hurting the most. So what we ask individuals, when you're searching for pornography, what are you really searching for? When you go deeper, what are you really searching for? Beyond surface, there is something that is driving you to look for what it is you're looking at. And this is something that is discussed more in depth in counseling.
I'm doing research. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yes. And that's what people say. All right, they want to do some research, they want to get information. But I want to ask this question though. Is pornography a means to an end, or is it an end in itself? In other words, do people look at porn because, well, I know in some cases they want stimulation, they want to spruce up their marriage and that sort of thing. But is pornography an end in itself? Do people look at porn because they want to look at porn, or do they use it for something else?
Pornography is so deceptive because it gives you the feeling in moments that everything is going to be okay. And you're feeling good in the morning. It's a euphoric moment that you're feeling, how could this be wrong? Mm-hmm. But when you close down that laptop screen or you turn off your phone, there is a sense of guilt, shame, brokenness that is inside, if you're truly reflected. And we know from statistics that a lot of Christian men are struggling with pornography. As a matter of fact, in the United States, 50% of pastors are addicted to pornography. There was one pastor from the Seventh-day Adventist Church, Bernie Anderson, who was a youth pastor, who struggled with that for years. He was on the pulpit talking, preaching, evangelizing, but in his past time, he was struggling with this. And he wrote a book about his struggle with it and how he was able to get free. I recommend that book as well. It's called Breaking the Silence. But when you look at the fact that so many people are going to pornography and thinking that this is just life, this is how it's supposed to be, every man's supposed to look at porn and that's a guy thing. And then you look at the quality of life that these people live, something doesn't add up. Because feeling ashamed, feeling guilty, low self-esteem, poor self-image has nothing to do with a quality life. And that alone in itself is a clear indicator that pornography, while it might appear to do some good, ultimately leads to the end. If we go back to the garden, the serpent, when he tempted Eve, said, this is good to eat. Everything God created was good. And the woman saw that it was good. Mm-hmm. And it was good in the moment. And when she bit it, well, you all know the story and how that turned out, right? Mm-hmm. So pornography is the same way. It appears to be so glamorous, but in the end, it's deadly.
Mm-hmm. As you mentioned there, I was going to bring up the issue of even Christian men, church members, are addicted to porn, and you said pastors, but we also have people in the pulpit. And I think because of what porn is, in that it's a personal thing, you could pick up, go on your phone or your laptop, nobody knows what is happening. It makes it even more challenging for people to get help. If you steal, then you might get caught stealing. If you committing adultery, somebody might see you, that sort of thing. But with pornography, you could be alone with your laptop in the night, in your room, or even in the middle of people, and people may not even know. And it makes it that much more challenging for people to get help because of the fact that you can keep it under wraps. You can keep it. So there may be quite a lot of people who are involved in watching pornography, and you know, when you see them, you will not be able to tell. I asked, that was the first question I asked last week. As a matter of fact, I remember asking you, can you tell? Is there somewhere you can look at somebody and say, hey, this guy watching porn or that kind of thing, you know? And you know, we know that can't happen. So, you know, it's challenging. How do we get people to come out then? How do we get people to open up and say, well, look, I have a problem, I have an issue? Because as I said, it's a shame thing for a lot of people, you know, for someone to know that you have this issue. So is there any way, I don't know how we can get people to own up and say, hey, listen, you know, that's an issue with me, that's a problem with me.
I think it's definitely, you know, we always want to leave hope in the midst of talking all the negative effects and statistics that are coming out with pornography. I think the first thing we have to do is we need to create a safe space where people feel vulnerable to be able to share what they're really struggling with. Far too often, we wear masks and we pretend that everything is okay and that we're fine, and we try to normalize the things that are really tearing apart our society. Because if you look at pornography's main target is men. And I listened to Miles Monroe one time, and he said the bedrock, the foundation of the family is the man. He is there to soothe. And when you attack the foundation of any building, it is completely compromised. So when you have pornography that targets men, you see what we have in your family life across the world, not just here in Trinidad. And we need to create a space specifically for men, because women, we know are struggling with this as well, but the majority are men. We need to create a space where men feel comfortable enough to share what they're going through. And this is not, while this idea might be great, we actually need to implement it in church, in schools, in businesses that men are gathering around. And the more we promote the education, the more we raise the awareness, and people have access to these things, they can now make a conscious decision as to, okay, where am I with this? Do I need help? And where can I get the help is the next question that we need to provide resources that people who want that help can have it.
Indeed.
And that was one of the questions that I was going to try my best to ask you. You know, taking apart from us as a nation and us as a country, let's take it down to the individual. Let's take it down to that person one-on-one, identifying that I have a problem. As we realize now, there's hardly a place that they can go to be able to receive help. So to the person who may need help right now, who's listening to this right now, and they are afraid to reach out, is there anything that they can begin to do? Are there any steps that they can begin to take to eradicate this addiction from their life?
The first thing I always recommend to individuals that are struggling is knowing that they're not a bad person. Because most of the times, innately, you know what you're doing is wrong. You may try to stop and realize you just can't stop. You may lie to yourself, deceive yourself that what you're doing is fine. But you know at the end of the day that something is not right. And I really want to speak to those that are struggling to let you know that you're not a bad person for looking at porn. The thing is that because the ubiquity of pornography and the ubiquity of the cell phone, many people were exposed to this unintentionally. It was not their intention to go looking for this. Then you have different cases of young boys and young girls being sexually abused at a young age, and that just set them on a trajectory of being promiscuous sexually. And they find themselves at an older age, lost. And we just want to share, I want to share with you that you're not a bad person for where you are. That you do not have to live life in secrecy thinking that this is the life. Because Christ did not die on the cross for you to live life like this. And there is freedom. There is so many resources. And I want to leave, before we end the call, Professor, with a few websites and books that I would recommend. for individuals that they can start doing they want to do their own self-analysis because you don't want to speak to a professional just yet. Most people like to do, do it yourself type things. There are resources that you can use to do that.
Indeed. Well, in fact, you can give us that information now because we're close to wrap up, and I think it's important that people have that info.
Okay, great. So one of the first resources, like I had mentioned earlier on, what we have is a lack of proper education about sex. I hear so many parents say, anytime anything sexually explicit come on screen, they tell their children, when you're there, or change that channel, and you don't speak to them about it. Some parents don't want to talk to children about sex because they think it might make them too curious. Well, what we have created at Fight the New Drug is a blueprint. So the website, the resource that I'm sharing, the first one is called Fight the New Drug, which is one word, fightthenewdrug.org/blueprint. When you go to that page, we have created a step-by-step instruction as to how to speak to someone who has been looking at pornography, someone who has not seen pornography, but you want to start the conversation before they're actually exposed to it, because they will be. When you go to that page, it asks you, who do you want to speak to? A child, a friend, a stranger, a parent, a romantic partner. You choose the person that you want to speak to, and then next it creates a situation. Is the person exposed to pornography already? Do you just want to have a general conversation? You choose either or, and we give you a step-by-step instruction. It is a taboo topic, but it is a topic that has to be continuous. It's not a one-time thing. It's something that has to go on. There's another website that I will share, the jstringer.com. He has created a sexual self-assessment. This is a questionnaire that the individual will fill out. And at the end of this questionnaire, it generates about a 40-page long result that points at the specific tendencies you have with pornography. This is extremely helpful for an individual who is going to a psychologist or mental health counselor, because it now narrows down the length of time and the areas that you have to search in the dark when you go in with the results of this. That assessment, however, it's roughly $140 TT, which I think is pretty inexpensive when you think about the freedom in the long term that it will bring to you, which is roughly $20 US. And you have this resource that it sheds light as to why it is you're here with pornography and using pornography. There is also our website, fightthenewdrug.org, has a ton of resources. So much that you can go there and you can type in anything you want to find, and we will give you the resources, the links to the correct body of research that will help you find that. But at the end of the day, you have to want that help. You have to sit with yourself and say, enough is enough. This is not the type of life that I want to live. I need help. And you can begin by that.
Amen. Wonderful. Good note to end on. Thank you so much, Jerome Alexander, for sharing with us, all this information concerning porn. I'm going to give Huey and George a minute each to, make final closing comments.
Oh, yes. This was definitely a wonderful session that we had. I thoroughly enjoyed it. Trinidad and Tobago, keep your eyes open. Keep yourself aware. We have many unforeseen adversaries to fight, but together we can do it. And be your brother's keeper. Stand in the gap for your brother. This is not about accusing one another. This is not about ridiculing anyone. It's about supporting your brother and your friend towards a better stage of living and life. Love you, Trinidad and Tobago.
Wonderful. Huey?
Well said, George. I just want to add thanks, Jerome, for coming on. Really appreciate the insight, the wisdom, and your commitment to really helping us in Trinidad and Tobago to be free. So really appreciate it, and God bless.
Thank you. And Jerome, let me just add, to what was said. I want to thank you so much. It seems as though you're fighting a lonely battle, but know that lots of us who are on your side, and whatever we can do to promote what you are doing and to encourage others to be involved, we are willing to do that. So I know this is not going to be the last that we will be talking. We will be in contact with you to see what else we can do, because this is, somebody asked a question just now. Who created porn? I'm not sure if we can answer that question. And I think they said if it is a drug, they need to shut down the whole porn system. I don't know how easy that is, because this is, as you say, $1 billion industry. This is not a local thing. This is $1 billion industry. But we still can't give up the fight. And whoever, whatever little we can do to help whoever we can help, we need to continue to do that. So Jerome, thank you so much. I want to, is there, apart from the website, is there a number people can reach you at?
Yeah, I want to leave my email address that people can feel free to message me, because of course I know this is a sensitive topic and we can connect there. So my email address is Jerome, Jerome, the number 588 at hotmail.com. So that is Jerome, Jerome, 588 at hotmail.com. And I can share resources with them from there and guide them through or answer any questions that they may have with regards to the issue of pornography.
Jerome, thank you so much for being our guest for these last 2 weeks. Blessings to you. Thank you, Huey. Thank you, George. Gentlemen, blessings to you. Thank you, folks. This is the end of Men Talk for today. You can join us next week at the same time, 6:30 p.m. to 7:30 for another program. And we want to say thank you to our sponsor, Anaya Reflexology Health and Wellness Center.
Hey, David, what you now, boy? How you looking spritey so? Just the other day you complaining to me about back pain, chest pain, your foot swell up, circulation, all kind of thing. What you take for that, boy?
Jamal, boy, I went by the feet lady, and not just me. I carry the family too. Boy, the family I straight arthritis, kidney problem, diabetes, circulation, acid reflux. You call all of them just now. Had a pinch nerve too, and a cousin with lupus. And boy, the feet lady help you with all of that. And Naya Tony, boy, she's no joke. She even helping you if you had a stroke. Call she today, boy. Don't make joke. Call Anaya Tony, the feet lady of Reflexology, today at 478-7416.
It's not all about you.